Hi, Satya.
Hello. Hi.
Uh, did I pronounce your name right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We're just waiting for a few more people to join in and then we'll just start. Maybe like in
Yeah,
five
sure.
minutes.
Okay. Hello.
Yes, Satya, please.
Yeah. Hi, Apeksha. Just this is my first session, so can
Right.
you give me a brief on how this works actually? Meantime.
Yes, so basically, let's just a second. So we'll just start since it's 7:05 now.
Mm-hmm.
We can just start. And hi, Aditi. Yeah, so about this session, It's basically, since you've enrolled into the Understanding Ethnography course of NPTEL, which is conducted by and which is actually run by Professor Nina Sabnani from IDC IT Bombay.
Right.
So, since you've enrolled in that course, we expect you to go through the videos and the lectures of the course. And once you're through with like week 1 and week 2 courses, since the 2 weeks have been uploaded on the portal now, so we expect you to just go through them. And if you like whatever queries that you have, you think that you need to discuss something with us, we are here to help you out. Also,
Okay.
wherever you might be facing any issues, whichever so I'll be just also trying to make you go through the week 1 and week 2 all together just again, so that
Understood.
no concept like is there left, which is like ambiguous to you and which you're confused in. So we're just trying to do that here. And
Okay.
because otherwise in discussion forums and things, you cannot just really convey yourself well. So these sessions are held weekly, like every week.
Okay.
uh, like it'll be done on Mondays. Yesterday it could not happen due to some technical glitch, but every Monday I'll be here to help you out with whatever queries that you have and to give you a
Okay.
brief about whatever has been happening in the week.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. Okay. So hi Aditi, you can hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you guys. Hi, good evening.
Cool, cool. So before we start, I'll just might want you to have an introduction of yours so that I just get to know you well.
Okay. Shall I start?
Yes, yes, please.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Satyanarayan. So I'm a product designer.
Mm-hmm.
So, and educational background, it's kind of vast, like diverse. I
Uh-huh.
can give you a gist of it. One is I did diploma in tool and die making, which is basically how products are manufactured in mass,
Okay.
basically at a larger scale.
Mm-hmm.
So the entire process of planning it and making appropriate tools and equipment for that is what all it was about.
Okay.
It is a sub branch of mechanical engineering. So yeah,
Oh,
after that,
great.
I did my bachelor's in product design.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm working as a product designer now.
Oh, well, very well. So, have you have got any background or any idea about ethnography before this course?
Not in depth, but a brief portion of it we did it in a college project while designing a product.
Oh, right. So, you did design a product using ethnography.
Not exactly, but yeah, we tried to do that.
Oh, yes. Okay, well done. That's amazing. And what about you, Aditi?
Hi guys, I'm Aditi. I'm currently working in the law and justice space, but I
Uh-huh.
studied fashion design. And during my course, I'd done a lot of research center centric projects, and largely my interest was in academia and the craft space. And when it comes to crafts, I think a lot of the approach to it is inherently ethnographic, even though we don't call it
Mm-hmm.
ethnography. So I think that was when my introduction to ethnography as a study or as a process happened. And I think ever since I've been involved in rural livelihood programs in Uttarakhand, and
Mm-hmm.
I think this is something I do want to understand better and probably also figure what are potential master's courses that I could think of based on what I learn here.
Oh,
So yeah.
okay. Great. That's amazing again. Um, so yes, so I can like somewhat get just like that both of you are from the design background and you have some a sense and some knowledge in design. uh, so basically, this course of IDC, uh, that is there on NPTEL, and then that people are enrolling, we do not generally have a criteria where we think that only designers might take up the course. So, but since being from coming from a design department from IIT Bombay, this course becomes somewhat relevant to designers at the end. Right now, it's basic. Like the week 1 and week 2 have been going very basic, where the sociology and anthropology aspects of ethnography are concerned, where we actually tell you the very initial levels where ethnography was developed. So that is amazing. And the I think the basic and the major idea of this course is to give designers an idea how much ethnography is important, basically, when it comes to designing products, for example, in case of Satya. And whatever, like in any other researches as well, there are other various domains where ethnography comes into picture. So that again, so basically that can be medical, that can be sociology, that can be education, that can be designing, and all the other fields. So research is there in every field, and then a type of it is ethnography. So and yes, I would like to know, before we start, that how did you find the course till now?
As in what our experience has been of the course.
Yeah, what experience did you face? Any issues? Were there any experience that you'd want to share about it? So for the 2 weeks.
I could go. So, like you mentioned, I think the first two courses are a lot more theoretical and base themselves in getting a perspective of how ethnography as a study is developed by itself, and I'm pretty enjoying those bits of it. I think there are just some practical concerns that I've been having. One is to do with the format of one of the questions in the assignment, which is a match the following, but
Right.
the table isn't there, so I
Yes.
really don't know what to do about those. It's there in week 0 and week 1 as well.
Yes. Yes.
And there are some links that are not working, which I think I sent a mail about in the first week itself. So I think those are really the two kind of hiccups that I've faced so far in terms
Yes.
of just the platform. I think in terms of the course, back into the zone of studying has been a has probably taken a little while, but I'm enjoying that. Having said that, I think the social construction of reality bit is something that I'm struggling with as a concept to kind of figure. And the text is pretty dense, and the PDF is not a very easy entry point.
Right.
So I think
Yes.
those are really my broad. Yeah, that's where I am right now.
Okay. Cool. And Satya, what about you?
Mm, yeah, I'm still kind of trying to understand the course structure because I just started and I completed half of first week.
Okay. Right. Not a problem at all. And okay then. So then it'll be good if I just go through. I'll just share my screen and show presentation, so that you guys can quickly go through whatever has been done yet. Yeah. So you guys can see the screen, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Cool. So now ethnography, as we have seen in the very first lecture. So this concept of ethnography, or the word ethnography, is basically associated as a qualitative research method. Now, if you guys have been into research, you might be quite aware about the words qualitative and quantitative research methods. Is that so? You guys are aware about these words?
Yes.
And yeah, and Aditi?
Yeah, yeah, sorry.
Okay. So, okay. Now, Now, when we basically talk about research, we talk about different aspects in which we might just have a research question and a research objective where we are trying to maybe find answers to it, or maybe thinking of solving a problem which is designed or described in a form of a research objective. Um, yeah, now into research, when it comes to qualitative research, we have different methods and different approaches to proceed. And when it comes to quantitative research, sorry, then we have different methods and different approaches altogether. And both of these, so once you get your research question, you think of a research question, you think of a research objective, then you go about thinking then what type of research method, maybe qualitative or quantitative or a mixed method, would be appropriate for you to incorporate into your research so that it becomes easy for you to carry out things and find answers to questions and things like that. Now, when we talk about uh, a research where we are trying to find out or even just understand. Now, research is not always about finding out answers. It can be also be about just understanding some processes, patterns, or procedures. So, when you're trying to understand or even explore or even analyze something, then we come into research and just a second, we have somebody, I guess, in the meeting. Hello. Hi, Mohammed.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi. No, please call me Apeksha.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have just started with the um, session, and I was just going through what all is there in the course till now, what you guys have learned. So, is English compatible to all of you as a language? Also, I forgot to ask. Sorry.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes. Works well. Okay. So, Mohammed, you've gone through the lectures of the course.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Cool. So I was just telling some basics about research and ethnography as a method. So since the course is about understanding ethnography, so I was just telling about that, and you can just stop me in between wherever you think you might want to ask questions or where you have your own personal queries as well. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we were just talking about that research can be about understanding a certain process, a pattern, a scenario, a phenomena, or anything. And when it comes to qualitative research, we are generally trying to answer why a certain scenario, phenomena, or a pattern is happening. So when it comes to why, and maybe it can be a how as well, so these descriptive questions tell you a lot about the field that you're in. So when we're talking about research, we are very much associated with the field aspect as well. Field is where you're conducting your research, where you go to collect data to get a sense of what is happening around you, and and also if your research question is associated with that field, then you have to have uh, some moderate to deeper understanding of what the field is all about. So for example, if you're talking about that, in in case of maybe designing a product, if we think about, if we want to design a product, let's say for the elderly, uh, and we are targeting a old age home for that case. So how do we know that what are the needs and aspirations of the elderly when it comes to a product that they need? So for example, we are trying to design a chair that is quite comfortable and according to the needs of the elderly. So there we'll have to go to the field, interact with the participants, and then um, get the essence of what they are going through, what are their needs, what are their aspirations, what do they expect from a product such as a chair. um, and research tells you about that. So in that sense, ethnography is just one way of trying to understand and trying to conduct a research, and yeah, trying to understand the field and then conducting the research, and also uh, just trying to maybe solve a certain problem, or just even make patterns in your head, or just contributing to the knowledge system. So yeah, ethnography uh, is as told generally by people, and as it is considered, is a form of a descriptive research. So descriptive research is when we talk about descriptive research, it is majorly that uh, we are trying to find out about certain aspects, and we might not be able to understand or even tell the exact reasons behind a certain phenomena, but at least we're trying to report what the phenomena is by understanding it. So again, ethnography, when we talk about it as a descriptive research method, we try to understand the social, behavioral, and cultural aspects. So um, ethnography has been um, sociology and anthropology based qualitative research method, but it's not that it has been bound to just those two areas. It started with them, but but when it became popular, uh, it was found that ethnography as a way of conducting research is really necessary for understanding the participant, their behavior, their daily life. And without doing that, you cannot generally conduct a research and even claim anything about anything. So when it comes to social aspects, you have to understand what. So, like for example, while we're talking about the elderly, uh, designing a chair for the elderly people, we can simply see that without knowing their social status, their social background, the way they interact with different people, and also um, how important that social setting is for the elderly people, uh, we cannot get the essence of what that person needs. Again, the behavioral aspects, how they generally sit on a chair, when they sit on a chair, like what part of the day they sit on a chair, where do they want to carry their chair to. Maybe it can happen that some elderly people would want to just sit on the chair while they are reading, and some might want to go to a park uh, and just sit there, read a book, or maybe just watch children play or whatever, and just for maybe talking to their friends. And the cultural aspect, where how important your product is for the audience that you're trying to target, and what cultural aspect that might have is really important to know. So ethnography helps you go through all of these things, and just because that is really important of to I would say that going through that process of research. Now again, ethnography is one aspect, so you have to really understand that if ethnography is really required uh, for your research question. So there, if you have a different research question where you really might not know a very in-depth detail about the audience, or you might just have a different set of question, maybe that you just trying to understand that how the performance of students are changing in a certain course. So that might not require you to conduct an ethnography research. So that is very important, where you understand that where you are trying to incorporate ethnography. So ethnography comes. with three major aspects, which asks you to first make observations. Uh, Making observations here, as the videos had suggested, isn't just about sitting in a place and observing people. When, say, for example, you're trying to understand the daily life of the elderly in an old age home, then you just go there, sit with the people, or maybe just sit there for a week and come back with some maybe findings. That doesn't work in an ethnography. You have to really do participant observation. We call it participant observation and not just observations. That is here. So participant observation means that you are there in the field. Field is in this case your old age home. uh, you go to the field, you talk to people in different scenarios, in different parts of the day. You stay there for a while, maybe for a month. You do that every day, and spend quite a lot of time in the field so that you get the essence of it. It's not that you can just go to participants, talk to them, make just certain questionnaires and surveys and ask them to fill them and then come back. That doesn't count on ethnography. That is a very different form of research. But ethnography asks you to make observations that are very deep. That you have the observations while you talk to people, you observe people, you just analyze what they're doing and make notes. So once you make notes, you start drawing connections to it. uh, Once you have started spending time in a setting like the old age home, then um, you come to a certain set of points in your notes where you say that maybe they're doing this at this point of time, uh, they're going to the park, then they're having their dinner, then they are coming back and reading a book, then they're sleeping, then they're waking up at that time, and then all of that goes on. But again, these are just observations and not participant observations. You go to them and ask, why do you go to a park? Why do you want to see children play? Why would you want to read that kind of a book which you're reading and not any other kind? So or maybe that genre of book. So all of these you make notes of, and then you start drawing connections, that why certain person is behaving in that sense or in that manner. Is there anything that is related in all these aspects, or are this just random observations? But mostly when it comes to ethnography, there are generally you'll find, if you're doing it the right way, you'll find it uh, a very connected thing. You will find that starting from the very beginning of their day, all the activities that they're performing within the day are quite connected to what kind of person they are and what needs do they have. So there you try making connections. Also, when I say drawing connections, me as a researcher and you as a researcher might draw very different observations and very different connections. I might just focus on one aspect of their day. You might focus on another activity of theirs. So basically, I might just focus on their reading habits, and then you might just focus on their eating habits. So that those things are very different. Make the observations that two different researchers might come across in the same field can be like north and south poles. Also, the connections that they make can be very different. So these are the aspects, and when you're done with the ethnography, the ethnographic setup, and you come back um, to actually analyze what all happened there, then you try to make theoretical concepts. This is the very end of ethnography, where it's your call where you want to reach that stage or not. Sometimes people do not want to reach this stage because that becomes a sort of a claim which they are making in the knowledge base, and then that's totally fine. But then if you're really sure about that, you have found something very important that needs to be considered as a theoretical concept, then you do that. So till here we have known what ethnography is. Um and yes, we might just go through the just talk about a little about the history of ethnography. So ethnography had started not until 1800s, as we know, but it had majorly started when the exploration of the humankind was going on. So we know about people traveling from one continent to other to just know if what sort of life exists on the other part of the continent, or just on another on a separate other continent. There it had all started. We obviously did not call it ethnography at that point of time. We just maybe call it travel diary, or maybe observation by travelers. But like we know that Marco Polo had done, and many other travelers and philosophers had done that. But and all started back then. And majorly the major objective of these travelers was to know about these foreign lands, which we call now foreign lands is a um past concept. We do not um, consider any land as foreign as of now, um, because it seems that we have had um, quite some information about a lot of the lands that we know about. And also, considering any land as foreign means that you're actually making some distance between you and that space. So we don't generally do that. We do not use this foreign word now. That is quite rude, and I would not suggest anybody to use this word. So but at that point of time, where they had no knowledge about what all happened in other parts of the country, in other parts of the continent, then they would consider it as foreign lands and would try to uh, have very in-depth knowledge about what all is happening there. So what these travelers would do, just they would just as like for example, we know that Europeans majorly did that. And because they did not know about the other parts of the world. So if for example they went to an African space, they would just go there, sit with people, and just see what all is happening. Because then again, there are language constraints, there are cultural constraints, there are a lot of constraints. But they would just do what, just they would just sit there and make notes of what all is happening, how these people are living their lives in an everyday setting. So, and again, because of the language barriers, they won't be able to communicate much. So, those observations started as a way to understand people, even though we might not be able to communicate with them. But now, ethnography, when it has evolved through time and space, it means that you talk to the participant a lot, get to know the maximum that you can about them, and then make what connections, patterns, and in the end, if at all, theories. So before we go to the next part, I would just want to know that if you guys have gone through this uh, folder where we have seen that where we can use ethnography. Have you gone through this?
No, I haven't actually. I'm just seeing.
Okay. Uh, and okay. Yeah, no worries. Okay, so we'll just see that why are we even learning ethnography in the first place. So as I've told you that whenever you think of doing a research where you are even just building a or just designing a product, or just building some idea maybe, then you'd really want to know what who your participants are, what they think, how they um, function in the real world, and how do they even just live their lives. So that becomes really necessary when you have to know their needs. So generally, when like in today's scenario, when I talk about it, generally when people design products or even think about of maybe making a course for certain group of people, they just try and assume things about what they might need and just build it, because businesses, companies do not have enough time to go through an ethnographic research approach and then trying to know their customers, their needs, their aspirations, why do they even need that product or not. But I think in the long run it is really necessary for them to undergo at least some part of it so that they would get to know their audience well. Now when you talk about ethnography, so basically ethnography might have different meanings in different aspects. uh, Say for example, in different domains, like sociology, it has a very different meaning. In anthropology it has a very different meaning. In education it has a very different meaning. And maybe, yeah, in design it has a very different meaning. But when we come to the main essence, it is the it is the aspect that you want to know your participants, you want to know your audience very, very well. Now when we talk about where we can use it, so if you're talking about intimate spaces and relationships, so that is quite a sort of a personal level research. It might not be called a research, but then it can be a study that you'd want to conduct. And it works on a very personal level, that for example, you'd want to understand the institution of marriage. So what you do is maybe spend time with a person or with someone who is married, and then maybe see or um, I wouldn't say see, but also observe very well, talk to them quite often, spend a considerable amount of time with them, and then get to know how things work and what all do they undergo in this institution of marriage. Again, uh, something like a community bond and friendships. These are also huge topics that can be taken up. Yes, yes, Aditi, please, you can stop me in between any time you want.
Thanks, Apeksha. Sorry, I just wanted to ask, like, is
Yeah.
the format of the 2 hours that we're going to spend every week going to be a revision of like the material that has been given, and then followed by questions, or what exactly is the format for this?
So there's no specific format. If you want, I can maybe change it as per your needs. So that is again, if you whatever you want me to do. Uh, I was just going through this because this is the very first session that we are having, and I wasn't sure that if all of you had some sort of knowledge about ethnography as a whole. So if you'd want that I take up questions before and then start off with explaining other things, then that can work as well. If you'd want me to go through just as what I'd say, a revision kind of a thing, we can do that before and then take up questions. So that is this 2 hours time is basically your time to think about and just maybe ask questions, think about the course, and then if you have any issues, tell me. So that is we are here for, but that's your wish if you'd want to change anything in this.
Right. No, I don't mean to disturb a flow or an agenda that you have. I think
Yeah.
I just want to know if there's time parked for certain very specific questions. I think I've brought up a few before,
Mm-hmm.
and it's largely that. um, yeah, I want to understand how you've planned this call out, just for, so that I can also recalibrate.
No, it's fine. So it's not that you'll have to attend every session. If you want, you can attend all of these sessions. So since this is an 8 week course, this is going to work for like 8 weeks. So every 8 Mondays, we'll be discussing about things that might you just want to ask, or even I might just quickly go through the topics that we have covered in the session so far, so that you just get a very clear idea about what all is going through in the course. So that's really your call. That's not a problem at all.
Cool, cool. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Uh, so yeah, we were talking about where we can use ethnography. So when we talk about intimate spaces and relationships, that is very different kind of an ethnography that we can think about. Then the public system and practices. So basically, when you talk about healthcare, education, and learning, these are the spaces that really require us to understand our audience, our people, our participants specifically, because here, education, for example, it's very important to know the learners, to know the instructors, what they need, because while developing new courses, while developing new technological advancements in these areas, or maybe healthcare, or maybe like technology and communication, we really want to know that if where the students are lagging, where they need help in, and where the instructors are facing issues. So all of that. Again, here, livelihood and employment, craft, these areas are those areas where people are employed, and then they face a lot of issues when it comes to their everyday functioning. So if we want to know what all they're going through and what all are their concerns, we really need to go to them, spend time with them, and then come up with um, a certain set of I would say connections, or maybe ideas that that would help them in their life. Again, large scale statistical studies would take a lot of time, but we can also use ethnography here, like impact of environmental pollution on people, product and service usage. All of these things uh, would require you to spend time with people, but then it is suggested that it's not suggested, but it's practical that you spend time with certain number of people for a longer period of time, and not just with a lot of people for a shorter period of time, so that you get to know about the major concerns of some sample of people. Again, projections, interventions, and forecasts. This is barely done in ethnography, I would say, but this just what helps. How ethnography helps here is that once you're through with what the present scenario in a certain setting is, then you can maybe suggest or bring some insights, that here it is written, bring insights about what can happen in the future, how we can improve things. And maybe if you'd and the other level, we might just want to know the we might just be at the understanding level of ethnography, but here we might need to draw some conclusions as well. So yes, that is one thing. And this was the major thing that I'd want to discuss in this one. You can ask me anything in between also, whatever we have covered. Uh, next, we were next we are trying to know is the idea of other. Now, when you talk about participants, uh, we thought like when ethnography had evolved through time and it had um, just moved ahead as a research method, then we had thought about thinking of how we get to know people. So while we do not know anything about a certain maybe community of people, we used to call them the other. um, but this concept is again problematic, where aren't sure that who is the other. um, Being a researcher, it's always, um, I would say, always a tendency that we'd always think that we are on a higher pedestal, that we are here to find solutions to problems of these people, and we are here who are actually trying to um, help them in the first place. So the researcher here can consider the participants as other, while for the participants, you might be somebody who they do not know about at all, and you might be a foreign person to them. So again, here you you can be considered as the other by the participant. So what this othering does is it isolates you from the community that you're trying to understand about, or maybe a group of people that you're trying to understand about, and it also makes you foreign uh, in the eyes of the participants that you're trying to understand about. So the idea is that the researcher should always consider the participants as somebody that are close to them, or they are being a family of. So when it comes to ethnography, it's really important that you follow the concept of inclusivity, empathy, and self-reflexivity. Inclusivity here is really important because it is of immense importance that you consider a lot of opinions. So ethnography cannot be done with just one participant. You cannot just have that POV of one participant. You have to have a lot of different points of view of of people belonging to very different mindsets, or maybe perceptions. So like for example, if you'd remember that the videos that you watched, it had an example of um, a road scenario where a person on a two-wheeler had just had an accident with the bus driver, and then there were four different points of view. One was the traffic policewoman, other was the person who was working in the drain, in the sewage area, and then one was another, I think, a pedestrian, and the other was somebody on the walkthrough. So there were four different views in which people actually had watched the same incident happen. So in that sense, it is really important that you include all of those perspectives into your research. Empathy is that you have to have uh, a sensitization in yourself, where you actually uh, think about what the other people are going through. You try to understand what they need. You are being sensitive to what they say. You are making sure that you consider each and every aspect of it, of whatever they are saying, and then maybe go deep into it. And finally, when all of this is done, it's really important for an ethnographer to think what changes they might um, they might have undergone while doing the research. So it's always seen, or I wouldn't say always, that's a huge word to say, but again, it's generally seen that people, once they're into research, they come out as a very different person altogether, because initially they had no idea about what they are going to be observing, they're going to uh, be a part of. And then when they're done with a lot of rigor, they have spent a lot of time in the field, they have tried interacting with a lot of people, it brings new dimensions to their ideas. And then it becomes very important that you understand if you yourself as a person have learned something from the field or not. And that is really important, because if you do not consciously understand what you have learned from the field, it becomes really difficult to think about certain things, because then um, you as a person and your study becomes two different things, which is really not the case in an ethnography. You have to actually dwell into the field. You have to actually just be a part of your research. That is really important. Now again, this when we talk about so this one we talked about the inclusivity aspect. Now we think that the reality part, uh, when it comes to as I told you that there were four different points of view in that road accident scenario. Here again, the concept of reality was very different for the four different people who were observing just one scenario. So while it looked from one angle, it looked that it was the error of the motorist. From the other aspect, it looked as if it was the error of, or maybe um, what would you say, a misconduct on uh, uh, by the bus driver. While on the other hand, one person saw this, that the the traffic police woman saw it, that the motorist had used the wrong way to cross the road, while on the other side it was the a very different perspective for the person who was cleaning the drain. So it depends what reality every person is constructing on their own. So while we talk about research, it is so there are different schools of thought in research as well, but one school of thought which considers ethnography as one of a really important research method. They consider it as that trying to unravel a various set of realities altogether, where you are trying to understand what perspective different people have in their minds about one same thing. So like for me, the motorist can be the person who has been at fault, but for you, might a pedestrian be a person who is at fault. For another third person, the bus driver might be the person who is at fault. So we really don't know. It um, depends on the person how they construct reality. So reality as a concept is constructed by different people in different ways. And again, the researcher and the participant can have very different realities. So as we saw that um like the professor had actually gone to the field herself and tried to find about the coward workers. So she had tried to find out about the reality through her perspective, while the participant can also have their own perspective and their own reality altogether. So that really depends upon so there the gap between a researcher and a participant exists, but also different realities can exist among different participants, as we discussed. So researcher is again a very different person altogether, but even in the field that you're going, there can exist a huge number of realities which you're not aware about. uh, yes, so this is basically again uh, one way. Now, Emily Durkheim actually says it has been discussed in one of the videos, but it looks very prominent to me, so I'm discussing it here as well. That when we talk about reality as a concept, so it tries to unravel it, which says that we should not say that an act offends the common consciousness because it is criminal, but it is criminal because it offends the common consciousness. So the first part is one reality and the second part is another reality, or maybe different points of view. But again, you never can say that the other reality is wrong. It's just that that's a whole new perspective to you. So this is one enlightening thing that that they say. And again, so before we come to approaches, I just want to ask quickly that am I making sense of all this? Is that clear to you guys?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I'll just try to ask Aditi and Muhammad as well.
Yeah, no, this makes sense.
Okay, cool, cool. So we'll just finish it off so that we can take up questions as well. Um, yeah. Now, varied ethnographic approaches. Now, different approaches can be used for conducting an ethnographic research, basically. For example, these are actually three of them, but we might also come across another set of ethnographic approaches as well, because nothing in research is actually fixed. You can come across various aspects of for the same um, type of research. So here, if in the videos, we have discussed that there are basically three types of ethnographic approaches which we can actually see. So one is describing multiple perspectives. So now, while you are conducting a research, you might so we are just talking about what do you want to do in an ethnographic research. So while we are conducting the research, we might want to describe multiple perspectives. So for example, like we were talking about an educational setting. So in that sense, we'd want to really know that if students are understanding a certain concept in a subject or not. So in that sense, describing multiple perspectives of students is really important, because it's not just one aspect where they might be facing issues with. There are various aspects that students might be wanting to wanting the instructor to work on, and we really need to know about it. So in that sense, it's really important that we understand the multiple perspectives of various students altogether, obviously. Another aspect is that we talk about the privileging of marginalized voices. Now, like again, that example of the road accident, we were talking right now. You're talking about multiple perspectives that we had. So we had four different perspectives in which that same scenario was could be judged and could be analyzed. So in this, but in the privileging marginalized voices, there are certain research, there are certain aspects where researcher would want to not just think about multiple perspectives altogether, but would want to emphasize more on the marginalized section. So for example, like it has it has been seen a lot in ethnography that researchers would want to really know about the aspects of what this low caste communities in India would think about work, or maybe, like for example, we were talking about coward workers. So they would want to know what if these workers are only belonging to the scheduled caste or the lower sections of the community, and if that is there, then they'd want to uh, bring light to the opinions of those people particularly. It's not that the opinions of other people doesn't matter, but but the emphasis is majorly on who'd uh, who they'd want to emphasize on. So basically, uh, putting it in a correct way, if you'd want to know that if a certain section which might not be able to voice their opinions in other ways, you'd want to actually know what they feel, what struggles they face in their everyday life, how they lead their lives. So that aspect becomes really important when it comes to ethnographic research, and people generally use ethnographic research to do the second part as well. Sorry. Now the third aspect is focusing on unique perspectives. Now it's not always that you can practically talk about something, or maybe ask questions to people from every community. So it can be a case. So, for example, you're doing a research in some remote village of, let's say, Bihar. So you might not be able to ask questions to people belonging to every community. So you might just want to know that if there are any unique perspectives into this. So, for example, people generally consider unique perspectives when it comes to trying to know what women think about work. So, in that case, what men think about work is important, but again, the unique perspectives parts come from uh, women. So that is the case again, and the this unique perspectives again can depend from, like for example, when we talk about a certain section of workers. So basically, if you're in a remote village in Bihar, you might just want to know the perspectives of women employed in the Madhubani painting uh, uh, maybe industry. So you might want to just know their perspective so that you can get the essence of how they feel working there, and how they're leading their lives. Now again, ethnography as a process or as a product is one aspect that the course tries to cover. Some people think that ethnography is a process where you do not really try to come to a conclusion or a solution, but just try to know what all is happening in the field. While other people think that you undergo ethnography, you conduct an ethnography research only when you'd want to find out answers to certain questions, and when you want to conclude things, or maybe you don't know about a certain section of the society and you'd want to know about them, then it becomes a product. But in that sense, we'd really want to know what field and what field work is. So this I've taken from the course itself, where they explain that the field refers to the context. Now context is very important. This word I hadn't addressed before till now. Now, when we talk about going to a certain field, we say that we are going to the certain context of the people, which means that ethnographic research cannot be conducted while you're away at your home reading. It can only be done when you're in that context. So, as we all know that we behave in very different ways when we are in very different settings. So you'll behave very differently when you are in a school, you'll behave very differently when you're in the corporate world, you'll behave very differently when you're at a party. So all that, and obviously you'll behave very differently when you're at home. So in that sense, the context changes every time. You are very different in different contexts. So, in that sense, the field, but what we call the space where the research is conducted, it is really important to know the site, the location, which we call the field, that is occupied by the participants and the phenomena. So, like for example, when people were trying to understand what all had happened in the Bhuj earthquake, they had gone to the affected areas, talked to people about that, got to know their perspectives in depth, in huge detail, and then reported about the plight of what all happened there. So, going to the affected area of Bhuj was really important. Otherwise, you would not be able to understand the whole context that people were going through. how difficult the life would have been there. You cannot understand things remotely. Again, field work is, so field is the site and the location that we're talking about, while field work is the process that so actually field work in ethnography is the major part where you spend the most of your time. So in that sense, it's the process of engaging, observing, and learning while being present in the field. So whatever you do in the field constitutes your field work. So talking to people, participant observation, as I said, engaging with the surroundings. Also, engaging with the surrounding doesn't mean that you always have to be talking to people or maybe doing something with them. Engaging with the field means that even if you're sitting there silently and observing things, you allow the field to grow on you. You allow things to come to you, to make sense of it. It's also engaging. So yes, that is one thing. And yes, again, we'll come to the process and product part again. So the process part, when we say that, so also in research, there's nothing right or wrong. It's always different perspectives. And similarly, if you consider ethnography as a process, then that's your perception. If I consider ethnography as a product, that's my perception. So that's all great until you just justify how it's a process and a product. So the people who consider it as a process say that it's a process where you engage with the participants. You record and document your observations, you understand and analyze what you have learned, and you represent the knowledge. Now, engaging with the participants is one aspect that we were talking about, but then recording and documenting the observation comes where I was talking about notes. So in one of the videos, Professor Nina Sabnani clearly says that it's very suggested that the researcher should always carry a diary in their hand while they uh, go to the field, because there are a lot of things in the field that you cannot just predict that you'd want to note. There are a lot of things. Sometimes people, ethnographers really like to document how the person is responding to their question. So not just that the verbal things that they're saying, it's more of the non-verbal cues as well. So sometimes when while talking to participants, sometimes they feel discomfort, they don't want you to answer that question, and in that sense it is again those non-verbal cues that suggest that they don't want to answer the question. They won't just deny on your face that they don't want to answer, but they might not be feeling comfortable to do that. And in that case, while you're in the field, it's really important to note down that these certain aspects were observed. They were giving these non-verbal cues. There were these changes in the body language. There were these changes in the facial expressions of the participants that made you understand that they did not want to answer the question. So in that case, it helps you to even make sense of what was happening in the field after you're done with the field work, but also it would help you to put them as evidences of how people behave when you ask certain questions to them, or even it can be very helpful if you'd want another perspective into research. So sometimes what you do is you conduct the research and you then go to a certain other researcher, so that there are no certain biases that you create in your research. So they help you do away with your biases. So in that case, it becomes really helpful that you record and document your observations. Again, understanding and analyzing what you have learned is here, uh, is what the thinking part comes in after you're done with the field work. So you're trying to, so this can done this so these things are actually not um what do we say, not different elements, but are but can be conducted maybe all together. So you can engage with your participants while you record and document, and also you might be understanding and analyzing things altogether while you are engaging with the participants in your mind. So that can, all of these are not very, I would say, uh, different stages, but of one particular flow in which things happen. Also, this does not need to be happening in one sequence. So yeah, and then finally representing the knowledge that we have derived. So you'd have to tell your uh, readers, like once you're done with the research, you'll have to tell readers what you've all observed in the field. Then that can be done only through representing the knowledge that you've derived. Now again, when it comes to recording and documenting, I'll just try to show you one thing here in the week 2. You can if you've gone through these, you can see that it's telling you how you can engage with participants. So there are various ways in which you can engage. uh, People call it as observation, participation, conversation, and also there can be many other things according to you. You can add on new different things, but these are the basic things that one does in the field to engage. So observation is, as told you, you can maybe so like we were talking about an educational setting, we'd want to know what the learners are facing, what problems the learners are facing. They can You can just go and sit in the classroom and then talk to students. So talking is one part, that is the conversation. Again, you can just sit there and see, maybe in a class, that when the class is going on, you can just see that what all is happening. So in that sense, that can happen maybe outside school. You can observe students how they are behaving outside school. You can see how they are behaving outside class. So that can be again inside school but outside class. And then what if there are any behavioral changes when they come to the class. So these things are really important when you are trying to understand your participants really well. Also, observation is this observation that we're talking about doesn't involve you interacting with the participant. You are just there sitting as an observer who is not interfering with the everyday lives of the students. Again, here participation asks you to so basically be a part of the scenario. So if you are there in the class and you're responding to certain questions, you're asking students some questions, you are um, asking instructor some questions, in that sense you are being an active part of that scenario, and then you are uh, actually participating in it. So again, conversation is just the direct interview part that we call. Um, many uh, many sources suggest that observation and interviewing are some basic aspects of ethnography. So obviously, participant observation, to be precise. So in that sense, yeah, the conversation part becomes really important. Again, as you go through all of these, this was just one. There are various ways in which this is just uh, different aspects showed differently. So observation is shown differently, participation is shown differently. You can go through these, and if you have any problems here as well, we can discuss in the next session, in this session as well, if you have any now. Um, Again, so also now when we say that we are engaging with the participants, the engagement differs when you have different participants. So yeah, so in this, you can have individual participants. This is one. And in the previous one that we saw, you can have the institute whole, as a participant. So in that sense, again, uh, how you interact with, how you engage with the participants depends on who your participants are. So that is one thing. I hope you'll get through all of this. And yeah, now when we talk about observations, we talk that we are observing behaviors. So behaviors in that sense can be intangible or unobservable things as well. So there are two aspects that we are talking about. So we'll come to the imponderability of everyday life as well. But here we're talking about the observable behavior and the unobservable behavior. Now, there are several aspects. Now, when we talk about observable behavior, uh, it's that aspect where uh, you can actually, where you're spending time with your participants and you actually can see things. You can be a part of their everyday life and see how they are working, how they are um, conversing with each other, uh, what they are eating, how they are eating, what habits do they have, what do they do before they sleep, and all of these things. So all of them, if you go through each of these, you'll get to see that these are the observable aspects that you can actually see and record. But there are much more important things that you need to observe when it comes to ethnography. So this is the uh, intangible and unobservable structure, which I'll just show you here. Yeah. Now the intangible and unobservable structure is not very clear when you are in the field, but you have to make sense of it. You have to understand that the observable behavior that you're actually seeing um, in the field has many underlying aspects to it. So that is again, you have to understand it on your own and make meaning of it. You and that these intangible and unobservable structures are your personal um, a personal set of maybe understanding about the field, your analysis, and this can change with the researcher to researcher. So basically, observable behavior will generally be the same so whenever I will go to the field and whenever you will go to the field, the observable behavior will generally coincide whenever we discuss that what all we have observed. But the intangible and unobservable structure that we are going to observe in the field are going to be very different between two researchers. So we might see relationships very differently. We might see the morality in people very differently. We might see beliefs very differently. So all of these things which aren't communicated quite clearly, you have to make meaning of them and understand them. So that was one thing. Now there are these two things which are important. So the final videos talk about economic interpretation. So ethic interpretation talks about that when you're in the field, you are understanding things in your own perspective, and you're also considering participant. Also, I would say you're considering participant perspective, and and you're actually trying to make meaning out of it. So you also try to put your views on it. Then it becomes an ethic interpretation of what you have done in the field. But only if you're not trying to put your observations from the field, you're just trying to record and document what you have seen in the field through different participants, what you have observed in different participants, then it becomes an emic interpretation. Hope that one is clear. So this one, imponderabilia of actual and everyday life, which was so Bronislaw Malinowski is a very famous anthropologist who we study a lot when it comes to ethnography. He talks that it is literally impossible to understand about your participants or conduct ethnographic research if you're not going to analyze your participants' everyday life. It is that. So if you are not a part of their uh, routine, you're not part of their culture, then it becomes very difficult to understand what their concerns are, what they are going through. So all of these things comes only when you are a part of what we call the everyday life. uh, Next is that we talk about Clifford Geertz. Geertz has again been given a lot to ethnography, and the basic thing that he talks about is culture. He says that culture is one thing. Basically, it's again in the sociological aspect. He says that the culture of a community, of a society, is what defines them, and if you're not documenting this part of them, then it's nothing, then it's not ethnography. So ethnography is basically documenting and understanding the culture of of your participants. Culture again is everything that they do in a certain day. So how I live, how I think, how I sleep, how I eat, what I eat, all of these things are part of my culture. So if you are not able to understand my culture, then it becomes very difficult to say that you have done an ethnographic research. Again, things like also, so he talks about that culture can vary a lot within different participants. So for example, in one community, a head wobble, which is this, can mean a okay thing, while in another community it can mean a no. So that is very different when it comes to different cultures altogether. uh, in the videos that you have gone through, Professor Nina talks about the Indian aspect of the head wobble. And again, Gilbert Ryle. Geertz had come to the concept of culture through the concept of Gilbert Ryle, which he gives an example in which two boys are observed, in which one is actually just twitching his eyes like that, and he doesn't do it intentionally, but the other one is actually winking at the other person. So the same uh, action done by two different people can mean two different things. So that is again where the culture part comes in. So again, finally, the part where you're actually giving the description of what you've done, it can be done in two ways. But in ethnographic research, your description has to be thick. It cannot be thin, because once you've spent quite a lot of time in the field, it becomes really important that you go deep into it and not broad. So you can actually have a lot of perspectives, lot of viewpoints, but then that gives you a shallow idea of what the community is all about. So it's very important that you, even if you are working with smaller group of people, you go deep into their aspects. And there are some readings that are given in the course. You can also go through them. Those, so basically, as Aditi had talked about in the course, there are basically certain research papers, certain articles that talk about um, things like thick description, thin description, and things like that. But apart, but in that sense, it's not really necessary that you understand all of it, but they're given just that you get the gist of what you're trying to say. It's also, if you do not get something, you don't understand something in some parts, that's totally fine, because research papers require a lot of time to be understood. And also you have to read a research paper multiple times in order to get the a sense of it, you get the meaning of it. So it's fine if you don't get it as of now in the first reading. You might get it later, but if you have like if you're interested to know and go deep into it, you can surely give it multiple readings, and then, or maybe explore a lot about these things. So yes, now if whatever questions, if you've already had any questions or you have questions right now from whatever I've told, you can just ask off, and then I have some questions for you to answer.
Okay.
uh,
In
yes, yes.
in the context of product, like I have, for an example, in a product I have people from different personas kind of handle my product.
Right.
For example, in a medical waste disposal product, there are two stakeholders. One is the medical professional and the waste management professional. So,
Okay.
okay, so these two are like entirely different people with entirely different backgrounds, and their day to day is completely different.
Right.
So,
Yes.
uh, when I'm trying to conduct a study and conclude it,
Yeah.
so uh, like in the end, should I try to draw some connections between these two people, or just isolate them and go about the study for it to help my product?
um Okay, so now if you're doing a research to build a product that will be used by both the working professional and the medical professional altogether, then have you need to document and also understand both of their perspectives in the
Hmm.
first place. And also you'll have to spend like equal amount of time with them. So
Hmm.
uh, if you're trying to understand one more than the other, then that becomes a separate thing. But
Okay.
if both of them are actually will be using the product equally, then both of those perspectives have an equal weightage in your research. So in that case you'll have to understand them. You'll document it obviously, but you might not need to draw any connections to it. If you really think that it will be helpful for you to draw any connections between those two perspectives, it's good, you can do that. Absolutely do that. But again, two different perspectives can work very differently. You might find two different perspectives and different connections under them and not with them. So those can be
Okay.
two different entities,
Mm-hmm.
but they can have their own connections altogether.
Understood. Understood. Okay.
Yeah, and also that depends on your research question, what you want to do. So
Okay.
that you have the full freedom in your
Hmm.
research.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, anytime. And any other questions about whatever you have learned all through the course, or today, like during this discussion? Aditi, you had some questions, or Hema?
Um, Yeah, I think my questions are unreally related to the concepts as much. I think I mentioned that I'll need to, like you mentioned, read through some bits of social construction of reality in a little more depth to get it fully. But I think mine are a little more logistical, for want of a better word. One
Okay.
is what's the format of the exam going to be? Is it going to be subjective, objective, or like similar to the assignments? Secondly, uh, yeah, please help with the match the following questions because it's
Yeah,
just like
that.
googly when I don't know what to do, and I'm sure a lot of other students are facing the same problem.
Yeah, so basically coming to your first question, how the exam is going to be. So basically I on a personal level I have given exams. Those generally follow the same pattern. Those will be CBT, where that'll be like a quiz. That'll be a whole quiz. And these objective questions that you're answering in a quiz, I think it should be in the same pattern, but I'm really not sure about it. I might just confirm it once for you. Apart from that, this uh, this thing about not uploading the question properly is again one thing that I cannot do anything about, because I'm just a TA. I am also, so basically I just forgot to give my introduction as well. So yeah, I am a PhD research scholar at IDC. So
Okay.
I really don't know how these guys upload the questions, and basically they had done it in their last year's what I say, last year's course. When they had run this course last year, they had done it properly. This year, I just don't understand why they haven't. I'll just write to them, but so that at least you guys can complete the quizzes on time, because they have a time limit, and then again not
Yeah.
attempting them properly, and also getting some answers wrong unnecessarily means nothing.
Right.
So
No,
I'll
that'd be
just
super
do that.
helpful. That'd be really helpful. And is there will we have any direct engagement with Dr. Nina at some point, or that's not likely to happen?
No, no, not with Dr. Nina. The only direct contact and the conversational contact that you have is with me. Apart
Okay,
from
sweet,
that,
sweet. No worries. I think she's also retired from IDC now, so um,
yes, that is the case. And also, even we don't have a direct contact. So
oh,
it's in
okay.
that sense, they generally do not do that.
All right, all right. Thank you.
Also, if you have any queries related to that, you can, or maybe if you would ever want to meet her, you can just give, like, write to her. You can mail her.
Yeah, I know for sure, for sure. And maybe at the end of the course,
Yes, yes,
something
anytime.
emerges, I'll drop her a text. Yeah.
Yes,
Thanks so
totally.
much, though. Thanks so much for today's session and taking us through it.
You're welcome. So, you guys have any questions? So, I have a few questions for you if you do not have any.
For
We'll
sure.
start with that. So, just that I get to know that you guys have understood some concepts, just few of them. So, first is this one: ethnography presents the research participants as part object and part subject. So again, I'll just illustrate what object and subject means. We had also not talked about it very clearly, but object, when initially, when we were in the initial parts of knowing what ethnography is or what research is, so people used to consider their participants as maybe an object sometimes, or maybe subject sometimes. So what happens is, uh, in design research, it is a very trendy thing to call your participants as users, because they'll be using a service or a product that you're trying to create for them. So in that sense, ethnography says that object or subject or participant or user are very different things. They are not the same things. And now we do not use these words as object and subject. We use the word participant altogether, because you'd want to give weightage to your audience, and you'd want to consider them as humans, as somebody who is facilitating your research. So in that sense, considering them as user, object, subject doesn't account, doesn't sound very well, and doesn't serves the purpose of uh, research. So yeah, in that sense, what would you say?
I'm sorry, the question again.
So ethnography presents research participants as part object. Oh, I'll just share the screen. Wait, that'll be helpful. Okay. Yeah.
Do we say the answer out or do we like type it in the chat?
Yeah, you can say that. We don't have many participants today. You
Yeah,
can just say that.
okay. So I guess B.
It's a false. You're saying Aditi says false. Satya,
Yeah, I go with the same place.
false.
False.
Okay. So um, now, uh, The answer is actually true.
Oh,
When
okay.
I say that it's true, it actually means, so basically, let's just understand what the question says. So now, when we talk about the participant as an object, we consider them as somebody which whom we are using for our benefit. So maybe you can say that there's one objective that you'd want to follow, and that you'd want to accomplish, and then your participants are actually helping you do that. So you call them as an object that that are actually trying to help you with your project. But subject is again is something that you study. So when you talk about your participant being a subject, so you are trying to unravel every aspect of that subject. So in that sense, ethnography presents research participants as both somebody who are actually helping you with your research and somebody who you are trying to explore. So in that sense, the concept of object and subject are something that ethnography tries to just do away with, but says that if you want to consider your participants as objects and subjects, then you should consider them as both, and not one. So that is what it means.
Okay.
But in the course material and generally as well, right? Like, isn't the whole premise of at least ethnography and the way it is or should be practiced today, like, not aligned with objectifying the user or the respondent or the participant?
Right,
And like, if there is a, like, I think somewhere in the course they mentioned that even words like user, subject, respondent, like, kind of present the group that is being studied as passive, whilst participant, contributor, stakeholder give them more agency. And the
right.
intent of ethnography study now is to be empathetic and give the due agency needed to these groups. So then, in that case, isn't this a bit of a contradiction?
Yeah, so basically here we are actually, that what you said is absolutely correct, because that is what we are actually trying to convey when we are trying to understand ethnography. But here, since we do not have any other words to determine what objectification of the participant would mean and what subjectification of the participant would mean. So we do not have any other words. So we are just trying. So in this question is trying to make you understand that ethnography considers the participant as both an object as in subject, um, and not just one. So it's just that they're trying to, in this question, they're trying to diversify what a participant should mean to the researcher, just that. And the morality part where that you're saying about is actually correct, but this question I think doesn't very well deal with it. It just tries to give the respondent the opportunity to think that if they should consider the uh, participant as somebody who is either a point of contact when it comes to completing your project, or as somebody who they are trying to learn about. It's just that because they do not have any other words for this, so they have to use these. It's just that. Does that
Got it.
answer?
Yeah, sort of, sort of.
Okay. Okay, we'll just quickly move to the next one then. Ethnography can be used to study incidents of history and to make forecasts for the future. What do you think
I
about
would say
this?
false because we cannot actually interact with the people who lived in the history and unless until they're like still alive.
Okay, yes. And Aditi?
Um, all of these questions are a little confusing because, like, I feel that to an extent, history becomes that intangible that we are doing the meaning making of, right? Like when we are talking to existing respondents,
Hmm.
and in some way, then we are kind of trying to see the patterns that exist and then maybe forecast um, possibilities. But I don't know. It's a confusing question, but I'll. Yeah.
Yes, again, so research does that to you, and ethnography will definitely do that to you. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So in this part, Satya is right. Apparently, so when we say that incidents of history, so making forecasts for the future was what something that we saw in this session today, because it said that you can actually make forecasts about, uh, or maybe get insights to making forecasts, right? Not making forecasts but getting in some insights too. But when you talk about studying incidents of history, that is a very separate, I would say, domain that we are entering into. That comes under historical research. In that sense, you're trying to unravel what might have happened in the history. And so, like, for example, if now today you go to Bhuj and talk to people, what all happened in 2002, then that becomes a sort of an historical research, where you're trying to understand what all had happened at that point of time, and what was the plight of people at that time. But as of now, you're trying to you're trying to get the essence of the context of of your participants in, like, in today's sense. So in that case, you do not really understand what had happened in the history, and actually you're not interested to understand what happened in the history, and you are not very focused on making forecasts for the future. That can be a byproduct, obviously, but you do not you cannot use ethnography to basically do that. That can be used to study incidents of history and to make forecasts. So you cannot basically use ethnography in that sense, because ethnography basically makes you understand your participants in the present context, where they are living today, what they are doing today, what is going on in their everyday lives, you remember. So that we're talking about here.
But then, for example, in Dr. Nina's video about the Kavadiyas, she's also getting a sense of their cultural history. It isn't sure it is about their practice today,
Hmm.
but in the telling of it, it includes um, the historical context, the value that it has had over generations, and that that
um
is not necessarily only about the present.
Right. So, yes, that is totally true. But in that sense, when you're talking about that she was interested in knowing about the historical context of their work, that was important only because that Kavadia work had been going on through generations. So since she was in that context, she had to know what, like, why they were doing this work in the first place, why they were involved in such a profession. First thing was that. So the answer to that was, since they had a legacy to continue, they were doing it. And also they were those households are traditional, who have been doing it since generations, so they do want to continue it forward as well. So that was important to know about the participants. In not in all cases it is the scene that want to know about the history of the participant. So, like, for example, as of now, as I talked about the educational setup context, where you're actually trying to know about the learners, where they're facing difficulties in. So in that sense, you really need not know about where, like, what their parents are doing, what their ancestors were doing in the past, or was there any historical context that was associated with these students. In that sense, again, you really don't not want to understand any incidents of history. So uh, only if you are encountered with participants whose history is really needed to be understood, then you go to the history part. Otherwise, you won't. Does that answer?
uh, like more like the professor was trying to study what like what was happening in their day-to-day life, and that involved
Yes,
some part of their history.
exactly. True. So that's a historical context was relevant there. If it
Hmm.
isn't, then you really do need not know about the history.
Okay, okay.
Aditi, that works well with you?
Yeah, yeah. I also have to drop off right now.
Okay.
But thanks so much for this call, and I'll see you next week.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. So, do you want to answer the next question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
uh, Option D, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. So, now this one is actually something that I did not discuss today. In that, when we talk about ethnography, basically, so it says that ethnography has to be so the approach, the ethnographic approach that you are adopting should be naturalistic, synchronic, and contextual, and
Okay.
even more. So, also, not just these three, there are also other aspects that the video talks about. That will be maybe in week 2, I guess. So,
Okay.
in the maybe in the last
Hmm.
video, I guess, which I happened to see. So, in that, since it talks about a researcher that wanted to conduct uh, a study in the past, that is, study an event that occurred in the past, basically. uh, it is something that uh, is first not um, ethnographic, basically. You cannot just invite some senior citizen of the research organization who was like there at that time and just talk to him and call it as ethnography, basically. Then
So
that
then
is
it is entirely relied on the person's memory, not on the.
exactly, yes. So you firstly cannot understand about the context just by talking to somebody, because what ethnography says, you have to be present in that moment and in that field. So the researcher, first of all, doing this is not actually conducting an ethnographic research. So this is the main point. But so there is not just one, which you said the context is again perfectly all right,
Okay.
but again the naturalistic and synchronic part also do not conform with the process that he followed. So the
Okay.
naturalistic point actually says that you have to be present at the natural settings, basically, which I just said, that in the contextual basically talks about that you have to have an idea of how people are living their lives in that scenario. That is one
Okay.
thing.
Okay.
Naturalistic basically talks about the natural setup, the natural settings. Basically, like for example, if you're talking about somebody who's from 1940s, you cannot really assume or understand what the environment around that person would have been. So you might just know that there weren't many modes of communication, there weren't many modes of transportation, but again you cannot understand at all the way they traveled those times, the way they communicated those times. They can just tell you what all happened, but again, as you said, it is all dependent on the memory, number one, and number two is you cannot understand the nature of that time, basically. So that
Okay.
is the naturalistic part. And synchronic part is that, again, um, the series or sequence of events that you might want to know, that you might want to make connections with, so
Hmm.
that isn't also there. So all
Okay.
these three things are not there. Therefore, the research method is not, was not even naturalistic, not even synchronic, not even contextual.
Hmm. Okay. Okay.
So this one works well, and I think this is the last one. Yes, this is the last one.
Okay. Yeah. True.
Yeah, that works well. This we had talked about today. So
Yeah. One other doubt, like in a specific scenario, actually, like
yes.
um, we were trying to build a product for uh, like a battlefield management system for Indian Army. So in this context, so we were trying to conduct a study on
Mm-hmm.
understanding and under what circumstances this product will be used. So it will be in a battlefield scenario. Uh,
Okay. Okay.
okay, so we cannot directly go and experience it firsthand.
Right.
So any kind of
Totally.
visual is counted as ethnographic study or no?
Uh, so this has a bit of what I would say. This has no definite answer.
Okay,
So
okay.
basically, so as we have talked about that, ethnography initially, like as I have studied it
Hmm.
till now, it says that ethnography initially was considered something that you have to conduct for a period of like a few years.
Hmm.
That you like, as we talked about travelers, they were there with the participants, with the people that they want to know about for years, understanding every aspect of their life.
Okay.
So they would be like staying, like literally staying with them in their houses, eating with them, sleeping on in their houses, and also like doing every minute activity of their day with them.
Hmm.
So that was the concept of ethnography till a long period of time. But
Okay.
now when we talk about ethnography, it has become a bit diverse. So
Hmm.
it's not that, like, when we talk about doing ethnography in an educational context, you cannot just go and live with students. So
Right,
that
right.
is something that you cannot do, and also that's not feasible and practical these days. And also, since you are trying to uh, uh, disseminate the concepts of ethnography in various other fields and domains, you'll
Hmm.
have to make it somewhat flexible. So
Hmm.
in that sense, these days researchers who say they are doing ethnography also just go every day to the context, spend
Okay.
time there, and then return back. And then
Hmm.
again, they do it for a considerable amount of time. So basically they might do it for a year, or they might do it for a few months.
Hmm.
But in that aspect as well, they try to get the maximum details about the person they're trying to get the information about, or they're doing their research on. So
Hmm.
in that aspect, ethnography has changed a lot. uh, but again, I think in that sense, the if your research is entirely dependent on the experiences of a battlefield,
Hmm.
it might not account to be an ethnographic research if you do not happen to be on a
Okay.
battlefield at all.
Okay.
So although, so again, there are various ideas, there are various what I would say, by schools of thought that
Hmm.
suggest that it's fine if you do not live with the people you are trying to do ethnographic research on. Some say that, the others say that how can you even call it ethnography if you're not living with the people altogether and you're not spending time with them, you're not in the imponderability of their everyday life, then how can you call it an ethnography? So there are again schools of thought which will say that your research is an ethnographic research, and others will say it is not. But
Okay.
considering the your research question, which says that you have to understand every aspect of the soldier in the battlefield, if that is the research question,
Yeah.
then that I think should qualify for being an ethnographic research. Because otherwise you are, what you'll say it is a descriptive research, but then again you can maybe say so not every research that we do can be entirely ethnographic, can be entirely say quantitative, can be entirely some other form, maybe historical, maybe action, or maybe exploratory, explanatory. So the so many researchers do not even tell if their research is so they do not just, what's it, label their research. They would not say that their research is ethnographic, and
Okay.
they would
Okay.
leave it to the reader to understand if this study is ethnographic, if this study is explanatory, or is it exploratory. So
Okay.
in that sense, you might just be safe if you do not call it ethnographic research, and
Okay.
just say that you have followed ethnographic approaches to that research.
Understood.
That is a
Okay.
safe game to play.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe.
Diplomatic way to say that.
Yeah. And also so that you are not targeted by people who say that this is exactly not entirely ethnography. If you say that this is your research is an ethnographic research, people from ethnography will definitely target you and say that this is not, because you
Okay.
have not spent time in a battlefield. And while other if you say that you have adopted a ethnographic approach to your study in order to understand the soldiers, how would they how would they feel, or how would they be in a battlefield, then you're in at the safe place. And then
Okay.
you'll also have to write that it's impractical to be at a battlefield at that point
Oh,
of time.
okay. Okay. Yeah.
So yes, so that's how we address our research area, our type of research. And also there is nothing black and white in research. It's always gray.
Okay. Okay.
Everything overlaps everything. So your research can be exploratory plus ethnographic.
Okay.
So
Okay. Yeah.
yes, so uh,
Okay.
even though you should be very sure about what type of research you're trying to conduct, because you'll be collecting data na? So in that sense you'll have to be quite sure what type of research it is, because if your research method will eventually decide how you collect data,
Okay. Okay.
and your procedure of collecting data, and then and again of analysis as well. So in that sense you have to be quite clear, but then at the end it might turn out to be very different. That is another scenario.
Yeah.
But you just don't just label your research. That's what I mean to say.
Understood. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot.
you're welcome.
Yeah.
And
So we'll see you around on next Monday probably.
yes, yes. Next Monday, we'll be meeting the same time, 7 to 9.
Okay.
Whatever doubts that you have, if you want, you can clear those doubts in the initial, like hour of the session, or otherwise if you want, because I'll be actually doing this review or also a revision part every week, because it just makes sure that every learner is on the same pace. So,
Okay.
and even if they missed any part of the videos, they are not lagging behind in that sense. So if you want, you can ask questions before, you can ask questions later, and
Okay.
I'll be there all through 7 to 9 p.m. to
Okay.
help you guys.
Great. Great. Thank you.
Any more questions?
Uh, yeah, that's all for today, I guess.
Okay, cool, cool, great. So just go through the videos.
Hmm.
Majorly the videos are very important, so that you get the essence of what is going on. Else you can access the reading material whenever you have time. So that's not a
Okay.
problem. Just for these sessions, so that you get some doubts, you get to discuss with me. Just go through all the videos.
Yeah.
That's the major compulsory important part.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so
Yeah.
much, Satya, for
Yeah.
joining. It was
Yeah.
fun.
Thank you.
It was a very fun session with you guys. Thank you so much. Let's
Thank
meet
you.
on Monday.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you.